So today I want to talk about prayers and thoughts. During crises, a lot of times on Facebook and other things, you'll hear people saying our thoughts and our prayers are with you. And interestingly enough, that's been a lightning rod for a lot of criticism. And very often you hear people say, we need more than thoughts and prayers. So I want to say a few things about that in this video. First of all, it's strange to me that you would, or that anyone would ever criticize the goodwill of anyone. I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus. But I can tell you that if a Muslim friend or a Buddhist or an atheist, someone I loved, cared about, said, listen, just want you to know I love you, just want you to know I'm thinking about you, praying for you, that I would not turn up my nose to the goodwill of anybody who was expressing concern and care. And even if that's all they could do, verbal support, emotional support is not nothing. And it's not next to nothing. It of itself is a gift. It's a gift of someone's heart and expression. But I also want to say that that there's some other things that are not understood when people, especially religious people, say that they're thinking about someone, they're praying for them. First of all, it's interesting to me that some non-religious, nominally religious people think or suppose they understand that maybe religious people think of prayer as being something like magic. So about a year ago, after a church was shot up by a violent random shooter, other religious people from around the world expressed their concern and made comments that they were praying for this congregation. A talking head on one of the news media outlets said, well, if prayer did any good, if prayer was any effect at all, why didn't it stop this shooting? And in order to begin this talk, I want to really kind of walk through part of the book of James and what it teaches us about prayer. First of all, from James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Let me start by saying that Jewish and Christian people do not believe that religious people get or even deserve some kind of exemption slip on suffering. We don't believe that God navigates around suffering or that he bypasses it or sort of short circuits it. The Jewish and Christian faiths have always believed that God works in and through history, suffering alongside of his people, working through suffering and bringing together good things through suffering. And we as followers of this God, we don't believe that we get an exemption slip or that we even need one, that we too are along for the ride, but even more than that, that we have a redemptive role to play even in the midst of suffering. And so we don't see prayer as sort of a way to get around suffering, but as a way to get through suffering. Second thing is that when people say we need more than thoughts and prayers, it sort of assumes that that one's inward care doesn't end up being reflected in any outward way. James 1 verses 27 says, religion, the kind of religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless, is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. So here's what Jewish and Christian people believe. We believe that our prayers are most authentic when they're tied to, when they find expression in some outward way. Now, um, we are not always able to do everything we'd like to do. There are many times when the people around me are suffering and going through things, and I wish that I could alleviate all of that suffering and make it all go away. Very seldom am I able to do that. And yet, my prayers very often prompt me to be an answer to the very things I'm praying for. Our very best prayers often prompt us to be a part of the answer because God is most glorified when He works through His human image bearers. Now, let me explain that for any non religious or nominally religious people that might be watching this. We believe, Christians and Jews, we believe that primary the primary role or vocation of the human race is to reflect God's nature by the way that we live, to care for creation, to care for the people around us, to create, to work with, to enhance this world. We believe that's what God created us for, to be good stewards and be good to be good basically good human beings, to live lives that make the world better for everyone. And so our prayers, a part of what happens in our prayers is that we're seeking God's guidance in how to do that, how to respond and love and care for a suffering world around us. Then James 2. James 2, I'm starting with verse 14. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no good deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm, and be well fed," but does nothing to aid their physical need, what good is that? In the same way, faith by itself is not accompanied by action is dead. But someone will say, "You have faith." Well, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. You say that you believe in God? Fantastic. Even the devil and the demons believe in God, and they shudder in fear at the thought of who God is. You foolish people, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. It is true, not just of religious people, it's true of non-religious people as well, that our highest ideals are not always lived out. Sometimes we betray them, sometimes we don't follow through it. It's true, but that's no less true for non-religious people than it is for religious people. But our highest aspirations, our highest ideals are always embodied in action. They're always embodied in action. Our prayers and our deeds go together. So even after all of that, then James 5 says, "Is anyone among you in trouble? Let them pray. Is anyone happy? Well, let them sing praises. If anyone is sick, let them call the elders of the church, pray over them, and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayers offered in faith will make that sick person well. The Lord will raise them up. If they have sinned, they'll be forgiven. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other, so that you may be healed. The prayers of the righteous are effective and powerful." Elijah was a human being, even as we are. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. Again he prayed, and the heavens gave rain. The earth produced crops. Now, James highlights some of the miraculous things that can happen. But I want you to remember the basis from which he's talking about. First, he starts the letter by saying that we will suffer in this world. Things will go wrong. We will experience brokenness and hurt and heartache. So James is not thinking in sort of a magical way when he talks about effective prayers. We believe that the highest supernatural things that God does look very natural to most of the observing world. Our highest miracle in the Christian faith is the cross and resurrection of Christ. But for many people, it's hard to see anything more happening in the cross than an innocent young Jewish man being killed. Yet God, through suffering and through tragedy, brings about the redemption of the world. So as we're praying for powerful things to happen, we believe that the redemptive work of God happens in ways that are not always recognized as being supernatural or superordinary. And yet we believe that God is powerfully at work. And so we lend him our lives. And we care for the people around us. And so our faith and our actions are tied together in an ordinary way that we believe God can use to do extraordinary things.